Hey everyone, I'm Sebastian from Cinemageddon Reviews, and welcome to another episode of Stories from the Wasteland. This is where I go into COVID-infested movie theaters in order to look at new releases and determine whether they're worth your time and money. Today we're taking a stroll down Washington Heights and taking a look at one of the most imaginative movie musicals I have ever seen, and one that hits especially close to home for me given my own heritage and upbringing. Now, I won't be speaking Spanish this time, but nonetheless, I'm letting my Puerto Rican pride soar because we're talking about the movie adaptation of In the Heights.
Hey y'all, good morning.
I am Usnavi, you probably never heard my name. Reports of my fame are greatly exaggerated.
Directed by John M. Chu and based on the Tony Award-winning musical of the same name by Puerto Rico's favorite stepson Lin-Manuel Miranda, a man who's better known for singing, rapping, writing, and composing, but always falls short when it comes to dueling.
One! Land!
It's in his...
Yeah, bro! Yeah, bro! I'm not Aaron Burr! No! Land! No!
I'm such an asshole. In the Heights tells a wonderful mishmash of stories from the Latinx side of New York City, told from the perspective of Dominican Republic immigrant Usnavi, played by Anthony Ramos, as he recounts the story of how magical Washington Heights is to a bunch of kids, and because this is a Lin-Manuel Miranda production, he tells the story the only acceptable way possible.
In song form.
I'm a huge fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda's work on Broadway, having had the chance to see Hamilton here in Santurce back in 2019 after he brought the show over and reprised his role for this one special occasion. I also had a chance to watch In the Heights here as a musical production. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be playing here in Santurce on May of 2020. And because we had a dumb shit telling people to inject bleach into their bloodstreams when he's not instigating riots, the show was getting delayed multiple times due to COVID-19. So, until that time, the movie version was released in June of this year, having also been delayed due to COVID-19. But thankfully I had a chance to see it both streaming and in theaters, and was the anticipation worth it? Let's find out. Also, before we continue, I would like to give a little shout out to Broadway by Ghostlight, whose breakdown video on In the Heights helped make this review possible. Check him out and give his breakdown video a watch and tell him Sebastian sent you. This is In the Heights.
Life in Washington Heights.
I want to start off by saying that anything and everything I say up to this point is going to be entirely and strictly related to the film adaptation, as I have not seen the Broadway musical, so I cannot compare the two. Although based on what I've seen, the few changes that were made for the film perfectly complement the transition from stage to film. The movie is told entirely by the perspective of Usnavi, again towards a bunch of kids, replacing the audience that would normally be present during the production of the show. Not only does this give the film a wonderful framing device for the story, it also establishes the rules for the world Usnavi creates for the story he's trying to tell.
Imagination.
The opening song of the film, the titular In the Heights, does a perfect job establishing the world Usnavi lives in, as well as the many different characters that embody it, all of which either get a nice little introduction or show that everyone in this movie can either rap, sing, act, or all of the above. What's even more impressive is the literal colorful cast of characters that the movie presents us with, including but not limited to Usnavi's cousin Sonny, played by Gregory Diaz IV, who works part-time for him on his bodega while also being an aspiring activist, his best friend Benny, played by Corey Hawkins from Straight Outta Compton, and I double-checked, he's the only actor from Straight Outta Compton in it, no need to repeat my mistakes from Kong Skull Island, who works at a taxi dispatch service, a far cry from his last job researching mutos. The dispatch is run by Kevin Rosario, played by God's gift to mankind Jimmy Smits, who's also the father of Benny's ex-girlfriend Nina, played by Leslie Grace, the only one to leave the Heights in order to study in Stanford, returning with less than exciting news about her collegial experience. And of course, I can't forget about Usnavi's abuela Claudia, played by Olga Meredith, the only actress from the original show to reprise her role in the movie, a loving matriarch who treats Usnavi like her actual grandson and is the glue that keeps the neighborhood together. And last but not least, Vanessa, Usnavi's crush, played by Melissa Barrera, who's trying and failing to get an apartment downtown while dreaming of designing clothing. One very important thing about this movie is that despite the story being told by Usnavi's perspective, the film is being told in medias res, meaning we are seeing events that already happened as they supposedly did. We get to hear what everyone's hopes and dreams are throughout the entirety of the film. However, we get to hear Usnavi's hopes and dreams all throughout the first song. More specifically, here.
Yeah, I'm a street like choking on the heat. The world spins around while I'm frozen to my seat. The people that I know all keep on rolling down the street. But every day is different, so I'm switching up the beat. Because my parents came with nothing. They got a little more and sure with poor. But yo, at least we got the store. And it's all about the legacy they left with me. It's destiny. And one day I'll be on the beach with Sunny writing checks to me.
This shot alone sells you on so much of what the movie is, from who Usnavi is to his hopes and aspirations in just a few seconds. He manages to tell the audience everything that they need to know about him, while the rest of the song speaks about the rest of the Heights themselves and the people in it. In the Heights is something of a strange oddity for a story. There's no real central protagonist as the story connects everyone through the power of food, music, and culture. Usnavi is trying to go back home in order to fix up his father's old shack and live the remainder of his days in the Dominican Republic. But the movie isn't really focused on his goals, because these moments aren't treated as a conflict for a story, but rather just another example of life in the Heights. This is honestly one of my favorite forms of storytelling, as it proves that you don't have to stick to the traditional 3-act structure in order to tell a great story. And In the Heights is unique in that it lets the characters' lives play out while letting the audience get to know them and their idiosyncrasies. This movie is loaded with wonderful performances from an equally wonderful cast of varying ethnicities and cultures, and it seems like the internet seems to agree with me that at least 2 particular performances deserve at least a little bit of Oscar buzz, that being Anthony Ramos and Olga Merediz, which if this turns out to be the case, she would have a chance of being able to win an Oscar for the role that she won a Tony for several years ago.
No me diga.
And of course, I can't really talk about this movie without mentioning the music, which, to the surprise of absolutely no one who's ever been to the Tonys every time Lin-Manuel Miranda is part of the nominees, is absolutely incredible. I had a chance to listen to the original cast recording before watching the film and had a good chance to get a feel of the music before watching the movie. And let me tell you, for anyone who's concerned about this movie not properly representing all the many cultures it showcases, the music is 100% authentic. And I should know because I live and breathe this music every single day in the heart of the Caribbean where I live. John M. Chu did the impossible and recreated the musical for the big screen in a way that gave it both the freedom to do more with how to present the music and the story, as well as giving the audience fun little Easter eggs to point out.
Da 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 yada da 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 yada.
Hi, Mr. Rosario.
Yes, I'm here.
I fucking love this movie just for that alone. This movie has a surprisingly wonderful number of cameos, like Mark Anthony, who also happens to have a song that plays at the end of the movie, Patrick Page reprising his role as Hades, or at least I assume that's Hades, I don't know, he looks fucking terrifying whenever I look at him. And, fun fact, that's Lin-Manuel Miranda's parents getting out of that car right there. Dr. Luz Town Miranda and Luis A. Miranda, aka the nicest man in the world and one who never forgets a face. I should know because we met twice and he remembered me the second time when I took this picture. This was the second happiest thing that happened to me that day, first one being actually getting a chance to see Hamilton for the first time. This is probably a good enough time to talk about the food and culture as well as the most important aspect of this movie that I don't think is getting enough attention. But first, I think we need to address the elephant in the room when it comes to this movie. The movie has received a bit of controversy recently in light of colorism accusations. The controversy alleges that the film excluded Afro-Latino actors with darker skin colors and misrepresented the demographics of Washington Heights. Many of the cast and crew had accepted the criticisms, and instead of acting defensively about the ordeal, Lin-Manuel Miranda himself publicly apologized on social media about the whole situation. I'm going to be extremely honest about this. I'm a white Puerto Rican college dropout with absolutely no way of relating to or understanding the plight that so many people of color have to go through, and as such, I feel very underqualified to talk about this controversy in a way that will be helpful for the people affected by it. So I'll just say this. I understand the criticisms and I understand the controversy, but at the end of the day, while this was a mistake and one that shouldn't be swept under the rug, I don't think it's a good idea to punish the whole rest of the movie for the mistakes done by others when making it, especially when the film itself has been such a huge champion of representation for other races and cultures. It sucks they swung and missed, but it's important to remember the good that the movie did as well. The film proudly embraces the cultures that so many of these wonderful people come from and isn't afraid to show every single aspect of what makes them unique, whether it's the clothes, the manner in which they speak, or the food. My god, the food. Let me tell you something, you know you're having a traditional Latinx meal when you're surrounded by family and friends while eating and telling stories and talking about your day. The meals we see being prepared all throughout this movie gave me such a feeling of nostalgia, going back to the days when my grandma used to cook for me whenever I would visit or would stay in her place. It made me hungry and happy at the same time, but it also made me miss my grandma a lot, and unfortunately since she moved to Orlando, I'm no longer able to see her like I used to. So yeah, now I'm feeling a little bit sad every time I look at this movie. In a good way, but still. In the Heights may have missed the mark in fully representing Washington Heights' demographic, but in the end, it succeeded in representing the many cultures present within it, and one that I can proudly relate to. I made it no secret that I'm Puerto Rican born and raised, and that I'm very proud of where I come from. So seeing a movie like this and seeing that they managed to represent my culture properly and proudly was something that had me nearly drowning in tears. Puerto Rico has been under the public eye for the past 3 years following the devastation of Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria. I was here for it when it all happened and spent countless sleepless nights crying and angrily watching as Trump and the brain-damaged parasites that follow him mock and argue about us instead of helping us in our time of need. Not helped by the fact that we had an embarrassment sitting in El Capitolio with his thumb up his ass, letting us all kill ourselves. Between Ricky being a useless shit for brains and Trump literally telling us to stop wasting their damn budget on my birthday here on the island, you can forgive me if I'm a little upset talking about the aftermath of this horrible tragedy, whose devastating impact continues even after nearly 4,000 people have been declared dead. I felt like we were being abandoned and left behind by the very states that are supposed to be quote-unquote united. Hard to call something united when you have shitheads running around in Viking helmets storming the Capitol demanding for a game show host to be president after fairly losing following an unfair win.
I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but you've thrown our budget a little out of whack because we've spent a lot of money on Puerto Rico, and that's fine.
I've been listening to you go on and on. Shut your damn mouth, you money-grubbing asshole!
I'm sure me talking about this may be upsetting to some of you or even anger-inducing, but it's important that I establish this going in because anybody who's seen this movie knows that the Latin American community has had a bit of a struggle in the US, especially in light of that piece of shit's presidential fraud, and these struggles are properly represented in the movie without any sugarcoating whatsoever. However, there's one aspect of this movie that, at least to me personally, properly represents everything wonderful about the Latin American community, especially Puerto Rico. Everybody has talked about how wonderful the song In the Heights was and how it captured everything wonderful about this movie with that particular song. But what nobody seems to talk about is how jaw-dropping this scene was.
Oye, ¿qué pasó? Blackout, blackout.
Vino el apagón, ay Dios.
Oye, ¿qué pasó?
Blackout, blackout.
Vino el apagón, ay
Powerless, we are powerless. We are powerless, we are powerless.
We are so.
Throughout the movie, we see a framing device taking place warning about an impending blackout that'll happen halfway through the movie. A looming terror that keeps reminding the audience of something that's coming, yet still manages to occur out of nowhere when they least expect it, causing fear and confusion on the street as well as confusion for the audience. What honestly could have turned into a trauma-inducing reminder of the horror many of us went through years ago when Puerto Rico was shut down by Mother Nature, instead became an example of how we as Latin American people are the most stubborn people on the fucking planet. Both Mother Nature and the government told us to suffer and walk around in the dark. We said, "Jódete, cabrón," and lit the fucking sky on fire. Seeing all of those people lighting fireworks and dancing around as they reunited with their loved ones and passed the time making conversation and playing around was showing just how tough we are and how strong our resilience is, not just Puerto Ricans but Latinx people in general. when not even the end of the world can bring down our spirits. This was the same feeling expressed by many of us here in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria shut us down, and we were left in the dark for months if not a year. We survived, we partied, we rebuilt. As Daniela eloquently put it in this film,
"We are not powerless, we are powerful." If Claudia was here, she'd say pa'lante. In Puerto Rico, blackouts happen all the time, and we still threw a fiesta.
In the Heights is a goddamn miracle baby of a film, one that celebrates everything wonderful about Latin American culture while showcasing a wonderful story with equally wonderful performances and unbelievably wonderful music. This is without any doubt one of the best movies of the year and one that deserves a lot of attention, especially considering that it's underperforming. Don't let this turn into the newest version of The Shawshank Redemption. It's already got the appeal, it's already got the acclaim, let's give it the love and attention that it deserves. I'm gonna give In the Heights a well-deserved 10 out of 10. The movie is currently in theaters and will be available for streaming on HBO Max until July the 11th. So take whatever time you have if you haven't seen it and go watch it now. COVID-19 might have delayed the inevitable release of this film, but nothing can stop Latinos like us from shining in the spotlight. And In the Heights shines that spotlight on many of us, whether we're from Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Mexico, or even the US. We're stubborn and we're proud. And that's all the time for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like what you see here and you want to see more, be sure to like, share the video with your friends, and subscribe for more content. And if you'd like to support the show, then check out our Patreon page for bonus content and exclusive rewards, including the chance to request for a movie or show for us to review in the future. As always, I'm Sebastian from Cinemageddon Reviews, signing out, and I'll see you on the Wasteland.
Pack up the carro, I'm booking a flight for New York tomorrow.
Oh my God.